Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. So I have a fairly sizable book haul that I wanted to share with you today. I have everything from new books to used books to vintage books, and I even have one ultra rare book that I'm super excited to share with you. But of course I'm going to save that till the very end. It is stinking hot in merry old Calgary today, so I have a giant mocha cold brew to help get me through this book haul. And like I said, it is a fairly sizable one, so go grab yourself a drink or a snack and we'll dive right into these books. So first up, I have this book, Take Your Turn, Teddy by Haley Newlin. And this book was very kindly sent to me by the author. She reached out to me a little while ago and asked if I would like to have a review copy to share with you guys on the channel. And of course I said yes. This book is kind of a little bit between a horror and a crime thriller from what I can gather. And just before I get into the synopsis, I wanted to show you that she did write on the inside of the book, "For Elizabeth, thank you for supporting indie authors. Stay spooky, my friend." So that was really lovely for her to do that. The book itself looks absolutely fantastic. So I'm gonna try to squeeze this one in June, but it might be July because I actually have quite a bit I have to get through right now. But of course, as soon as I read it, I'll do a full review for you guys on the channel. And just reading quickly from Goodreads here, it says, "No one knows your darkness like your own shadow. Nothing has been normal for Teddy, not since discovering the harsh identity of the monster he had been living with his whole life, his own father." So of course here we have that sort of strained family dynamic, and I have a funny feeling that this book is going to be really hard to read, of course, because we have a little boy who is dealing with a monstrous father. So Teddy and his mother decide to leave the township behind and start a new life, but Teddy meets another entity that he calls the Shadow. And I'm gonna leave it right there because I don't want to give too much away of the synopsis. I kind of want to go into this a little bit blind, but I do know that it does have supernatural elements and a crime element as well. So of course those two things are right up my alley. So I will report back to you guys as soon as I have this one read, and I will give you my honest review. And next up we have Haunted Peak District by Jill Armitage. And this one just came in the mail a couple of days ago, and I had totally forgotten that I had ordered it on Amazon. I believe this came all the way from the UK, and I had heard about it somewhere. I was watching a documentary or somebody else's video and this book was mentioned. So this is a nonfiction book, and it deals with County Derbyshire, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, which has had its share of strange happenings. So this book looks really good. It's about a haunted place. So I'll just zoom in here quickly to show you guys the interior of this book. It's not very long, but it is fully illustrated. So I wanted to share some of those illustrations with you guys. So it says here that the Haunted Peak District contains a chilling range of ghostly tales which have been passed down through countless generations. From phantom aircraft from the Second World War and Roman soldiers tramping across bleak moorland expanses, to strange lights which have mesmerized stagecoach travelers and are still seen by motorists today. This phenomenal gathering of ghostly goings-on is bound to captivate anyone interested in the supernatural history of the area. So that sounds absolutely fantastic. You guys know that I have a love for true paranormal experiences. And as I've said before, I come from a place that is rich in storytelling history and fables and folklore and ghost stories and the whole thing. So I think this one is going to be right up my alley. I'm going to try to get to this one during spooky season, which is just about to start in a couple of months. And next up we have The Return by Rachel Harrison. And this has the most fabulous pink cover. I don't know if you guys can really pick it up on camera, but this is the most hot pink that I've ever seen. I actually used to have my hair this color, and I really miss it sometimes, but it was really hard to manage. But anyway, getting back to the book, this is a debut novel, and it says here, an edgy, haunting novel about a group of friends who reunite after one of them has returned from a mysterious 2-year absence, and she has absolutely no memory of what happened. So one of the friends disappeared one day without a trace. Nobody knows what happened, and then she comes back, doesn't know where she's been, and the story kind of goes from there. So excited to get into this one. I think I've heard about this particular one on a couple of other booktubers channels, and they gave it rave reviews, so I'm excited to get into this one. Unfortunately, I double clicked when I was ordering this, so I ended up with 2 copies. But the good news is that these were bargain copies, so I will save 1 copy to go in whenever we do another giveaway on the channel. So next up we have Fledgling by Octavia E. Butler, and I have heard so many good things about this book. I'm really late to the game when it comes to reading Octavia Butler. I haven't read any of her books yet, but I picked up this one, and I believe there was another one in the last haul that I did. So I am excited to get into reading some stuff by this author because she has gotten nothing but rave reviews. So this particular book deals with a young girl who has amnesia, but she has a very strange inhuman need that she has to feed, and we find out that she is actually a 53-year-old genetically modified vampire, and she spends her time trying to figure out the life that was stolen from her and that she can't remember. But there is also another person or being that is hell-bent on destroying her. So lately I've had a real hankering to get back into anything that has to do with vampires, so I was really happy to get this one, and I think I might do a whole vampire themed TBR because there's just such a wide range of myths and ideas that surround vampires, and I've been really craving that. So excited to have this one and hoping to get into this one before the end of the year as well. So next up we have Wonderland by Zoya Stage, and this is the author of Baby Teeth, which was one of my favorite reads last year. And even if people ask me now what's a book that I would recommend to them to read, it would probably be Baby Teeth. And so I'm really excited to get into this one. I really enjoy this author's style of writing, and she is just absolutely fantastic. So it says here, if Shirley Jackson wrote The Shining, it might look like this deliciously unsettling horror. So Baby Teeth was very unsettling as well, so I think this is kind of this author's niche, and I'm really excited to have another book by her. And this one deals with a family, your normal average family, who moves into upstate New York into a new home because they kind of want to start their lives over. So it's a very familiar storyline, and apparently this, I believe it's a farmhouse, is very secluded. It's hundreds of miles from the nearest city, and even, you know, over a mile away from the person that lives next door. So we get that isolation kind of horror in here as well. And it says, none of the Bennets expect what lies waiting in the lovely woods, where secrets run dark and deep. Orla must finally find a way to communicate with, not just resist, this unknown entity that is coming to her family, calling to them from the land, in the earth, beneath the trees, and in their minds. So I think this sounds absolutely fabulous. You have kind of a psychological aspect here. You have a mysterious entity in the woods. These people are in the middle of nowhere, and you have this mother that is trying to basically look out and save her family. So this sounds absolutely fabulous, and I'm hoping that I'm going to enjoy it just as much as I enjoyed Baby Teeth. So the last new book that I wanted to share with you is The Dark Descent. And it says here, winner of the World Fantasy Award. So this is an anthology series, and it has a lot of really famous authors in here. So it says, this highly acclaimed anthology traces the evolution of horror from Nathaniel Hawthorne and Edgar Allan Poe to Stephen King. So, and on the front here it says Clive Barker, Ray Bradbury, Shirley Jackson, Stephen King, Joyce Carol Oates, and others. So you guys know that I love a good anthology, and like I said, this is a huge book. So really excited to have this one for the collection. As I've said before, if I get into a reading slump, I like reading short stories. Even though this is a huge book, I mean, you know, you can pick up and read a story in an evening, and a lot of these stories are probably going to be ones that are very familiar from authors that we all love. So if you're in a reading slump, just go grab a good anthology series and sit down, and you feel very accomplished when you finish one story a night, and it'll bring you right out of that slump. So next up, I picked up a whole bunch of used books as well, and if you're in the Calgary area, I usually find really good used books at Pages on Kensington, so I will leave a link below to their website. They have a brand new website, and I find it really super easy to order from them because they keep all of their inventory online, and you can go in and see what they have. You can get the book shipped to you, or you can have them put the order together, and like for me, if I'm in the downtown Calgary area, I'll just hop on over and pick it up on the weekend, and I find that their prices are very reasonable. I found a lot of good gems there, so again, I'll leave their link down below. If you're in the Calgary area, I would highly suggest ordering from them. Of course, I'm not affiliated, it's just my favorite bookstore. So first up, we have an amazing hardcover copy of 11/22/63 by Stephen King, and I've never read this book, but it's one that I've always been interested in, just because, you know, that period of time when JFK was assassinated is just, you know, it's so iconic, and it's a time that, you know, I remember growing up and hearing about it and researching it, and it has all of the conspiracy theories, so I think this is going to be a really great one. But just beyond the story itself, this book is in amazing condition. It is absolutely perfect. There's not a blemish on it, but, and this is something that I think is a little bit, you know, either you like it or you don't, but this book was obviously a gift because it says, "Dearest Peter, all the best in 2012. And of course, on my vintage collector books, I don't like to have any writing on it, but every now and again I'll come across one of these books that has a little inscription on there if the book was gifted. I just find that it just adds to the whole history of the used book, and you know, somebody very lovingly bought this and gave it to someone as a gift, and I find that that just adds to the whole energy of the reading experience. So personally, I really enjoyed that it had that little inscription on there, but other than that, this book is in perfect condition, and I bought it for, I think this was $5. So absolutely perfect, and so happy to have this one as part of my growing Stephen King collection. And next up, I have Broken Circle, The Dark Legacy of Indian Residential Schools, a memoir by Theodore Fontaine. So I bought this one at Pages as well. I did mention, I think in my last video or a couple of videos back, that we had something happen here in Canada that was really devastating, and it broke open a lot of old wounds from the Indian residential school system. And even though I have looked into that before and just I know a little bit of the history, I wanted to pick up a couple of books this summer to extend my knowledge of that whole period and what people are still to this day going through after the 60s scoop and the Indian residential school system, which only I think closed in 1997. So it is very recent. These schools that Indigenous people were forced into, and they were brutally abused. And like I said in my recent video, they had found the bodies of 215 school children on the grounds of one of the residential schools over in BC. So I picked up this book and another memoir that I'll get into next, because like I said, I really wanted to extend my knowledge of what all of this was from people who are telling their stories firsthand. So it's going to be a really hard read, but I did want to include this one, and the other one that I got is They Called Me Number One, which is the same sort of thing, a memoir that is a first-hand experience and account of what happened in those residential school systems. So really tough history, but like I said, I wanted to include a couple of these books that are first-hand accounts so I can extend my own knowledge and hear it straight from the people who actually experience these things. And next up, on a little bit of a lighter note, I did find a Caroline B. Cooney book in really great condition. So this is Wanted, and it looks almost brand new. And it has the most fantastic raised silver lettering on the front here. And Caroline B. Cooney is one of my favorite authors from that period. She wrote The Face on the Milk Carton, which was one of my favorite books growing up. I never ever got to finish that series. I think I only read the first book or the first 2 books, so I'd really like to get copies of those ones as well, but I'm looking for specific covers, so I don't have those yet. But for this one, so this is Wanted from 1997, and Alice gets a phone call from her father, and he tells her that she needs to take his prized Corvette that he would never allow her to drive and come get him. And she says, well, I don't even have a driver's license. And he says, I don't care, you have to come. And while she's in the car, she hears on the radio that her father is dead. And the police have actually received an email from the supposed killer, but the email is from Alice. So that's kind of where the story starts. It's just classic Caroline B. Cooney from the 90s. Really, really excited to get into this one. I'm hoping to get into it before the end of the year, and I'm hoping to find some more Caroline B. Cooney books that I can add to the collection. I've just been really, really enjoying reading the vintage horror books. As much as I've enjoyed some of the new books like Whisper Down the Lane and Don't Tell a Soul and Frozen Charlotte, some of them are really, really good, but there's just something about the way that the vintage horror books are written and just reliving all that nostalgia from that time. I've talked about it a million times on this channel, but I think I'm really going to start to shift away from getting so many new books and just really concentrating on getting the collectibles. And next up I have a couple of used John Saul books, and I am a total John Saul virgin. I haven't read him before, and I don't really know why. I don't know if it's because he is so popular and he's such a blockbuster writer that, you know, I kind of steered away from him a little bit. Not really sure why, but I'm excited to have these ones. So the first one, and again, it has this wonderful foiled raised lettering on the front. So this is Second Child, and I just love the cover on this. And it says on the back, a lush, secluded Maine seaside resort, summer playground of the super rich. 100 years ago, something disturbed their play. Horror came to this village, and though no one knows it yet, the horror has never left. So really excited to have that one. And I also have The Right Hand of Evil, and this one is sort of like a haunted house type story. And then we have Midnight Voices, and this one is about a woman who her husband dies suddenly and he leaves her alone with her children, and she has no money and no prospects, and she's really down and out until she meets a handsome rich man who, you know, he sweeps her off her feet and couldn't be better, and she decides to get married to him and move into his posh West Central Park apartment. And her son has a lot of misgivings about moving into this apartment. He really doesn't want to. And here's the thing, if you have a child or an animal like a pet, dog, cat, whatever, that refuses to go into a house or an apartment, there's something up. There's definitely something up, and your life is going to be turned completely upside down. And that's exactly what happens here to Caroline and her family. So it says, Caroline dismisses the odd behavior of her neighbors as pleasant eccentricities. But after her daughter begins to experience horrifying nightmares and a startling secret emerges, Caroline realizes that the magnificence of her new home masks a secret of unimaginable horror. So sounds right up my alley. Like I said, never read any John Saul, which I mean is just a horror no-no. Everybody knows this author. So really excited to have these couple of books. And let me know down below if you're a John Saul fan and if you think that I will like these books. And next up, I put in a fairly sizable order with one of my friends, Spooky Sellables, over on Etsy. This is the second order that I've gotten from her, and everything always arrives so well wrapped, and in no time at all. She is, you know, over on the east coast of Canada, and she's just absolutely lovely. I will link her shop and her Instagram page down below. The customer service is just absolutely amazing. I had a couple of questions about a few of the books, and of course, because I wanted to order a whole bunch, you know, I had questions about shipping, and she's just so accommodating and just absolutely lovely to deal with. So if you're in Canada, I would highly, highly, highly recommend checking out her shop. Her books are always in such fantastic condition, and you know, like I said, it arrives in no time. She's really responsive, and I found a couple of gems that I haven't seen anywhere here, so really, really excited to have these ones. So first up, we have 10 Tales Calculated to Give You Shudders. And just look at the amazing cover art on this. It is so retro. So this book is from 1978, I believe, and it is in perfect condition. Like, this book must have been kept on a shelf for years and years, just besides a little bit of the yellowing of the pages, of course, which is going to happen over time. You know, there's no dents or bends or anything in this book, and it looks absolutely fabulous. So this is a short story collection, obviously, that is geared towards, I would assume, kids and teens, and it is written by, it's edited by Ross R. Olney, and it was released by Golden Press. So I was so excited to get this. I just love everything, you know, say from the 50s to the 90s, and to find a book that is so fantastic with this wonderful cover art, and it's like I said, it looks completely brand new. So I'm sure I'm gonna find time to read this one during spooky season this year also. My TBR for spooky season just keeps growing, but these anthologies are great. They're really, really short. You know, you can read one story a night, like I said, and I'm sure it's gonna be a ton of fun. And next up, I have one of the books from the Nightmare Room series by R.L. Stine. So this series came after the popularity of Goosebumps, and it was kind of in the early 2000s. I didn't read any of this series because at that point I had kind of, you know, gotten a lot older and I was getting into adulthood, so I just never got into it, but really excited to have this one. So this one is Locker number 13. And the Nightmare Room, I believe, has 12 books in the series, and then another 3 that are kind of like a little bit of a spin-off. And it says on the back here, "You hold in your hand the key to a shadow world of shivers and screams. Take a step away from the safe, comfortable world you know. Unlock the door to terror. There is always room for one more in the Nightmare Room." So this, of course, was also a TV series, just like the other, you know, R.L. Stine anthology series were. And of course, it's just from that golden era of the spooky stories for older kids and into teens. So I'm sure this one's going to be really, really fun, and I'm going to keep an eye out for the rest in the series as well. And next up, I got another Fright Time book. So I did order a couple of Fright Time from Marissa's shop on my last haul. And so in this little book, it's also geared towards that, you know, later child into teens. And it has 3 spine-tingling tales for young readers. So this one has Don't Breathe, Over Nightmare, and It's in the Attic. And again, with the fantastic cover art. I just find books for this age group to be so imaginative. They're kind of twisted, and sometimes they can be really, really scary. I haven't read anything from Fright Time yet, but still really excited to have them for the collection, of course, of my YA horror, and I'll be hopping into these sometime soon. And next up, I got a couple of books from the Shivers series by M.D. Spencer. And again, never got into this series, but of course it's from that golden age of the YA horror. And it was also came out during that time that Goosebumps was super, super popular. So this is kind of a Goosebumps knockoff or alternative, if you will. So here I have number 3, Ghost Rider, number 4, The Animal Rebellion, and number 6, The Haunting House. So like I said, haven't read any of the Shivers before, but of course I know all about them, so I will be picking up a couple of these probably during spooky season this year as well. And next is kind of something that's a little bit out of my normal niche, and that is some books from the X-Files series. And I'm not usually super big into sci-fi and that sort of thing, but of course I watched the X-Files religiously every single week when I was growing up, and I've never read any of the novelizations of it before, but I thought it would be a great addition to my 90s horror sci-fi collection. So we have number 1, X Marks the Spot. Number 2, Darkness Falls. Number 3, Tiger Tiger. Jumping over to number 7, Fear. Number 8, Voltage. And number 11, Ghost in the Machine. And the last couple of books I got from Spooky Sellables was, of course, some Fear Street that I was missing out of the collection. So we have Ski Weekend, The Cheater, and The Overnight. And I think The Overnight is going to fit in with that sort of summer vibe TBR that I'm doing over the next couple of months. So I'm going to try to squeeze this one in during July. I think Chaney just finished this book and said it was pretty good, so I'm excited to get into this one. I just finished an absolutely awful camping themed book, which I will do a review of coming up in my next video. So I'm looking for something that's going to fill that gap for all the nostalgia that I was looking for in the last book. And the last couple of books that I wanted to share with you guys are really beautiful vintage copies of some used books that I found, and I wanted to save these till last because they just have such amazing energy, and the cover art is beautiful, and just the era that it was printed from, late 70s, early 80s, and these books are just in absolutely fantastic condition. So first up we have Audrey Rose by Frank DeFelitta, and this is a copy from, I believe, 1976. Yes, it's a first printing from 1976, and just have a look at that absolutely gorgeous cover art. And this book is in fabulous condition. So I picked this one up for $4. I know this is a classic, but I've never read it before, and when I saw how beautiful it was, I just had to pick it up for the collection. I might look for some reader copies because, like, the spine is not broken on this book, and it's just beautiful. So super happy to have that one. And to go along with that, we have For the Love of Audrey Rose. So this is the sequel, and it was printed in July of 1982, which is my birth month. Something that I think I'd really like to do is to start collecting horror books that were from my birth year, which is 1982. So this one is just a little bit more special because it's from my birth month as well. And this is also a first printing, and just absolutely beautiful cover art. And these books just smell so good. And again, the spine on this one is cracked just a little tiny bit, but it is still fairly stiff. And so I think these were kept on shelves for a really long time. And I also got this one for $4. So, you know, to get 2 vintage copies like this for an amazing price, I was just so excited. So couldn't wait to share these with you guys. And then next up we have Summer of Night by Dan Simmons. And this one is another absolutely beautiful vintage book. So I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see the beautiful accents on this book. So here we go. This is Summer of Night. So it is showing some signs of wear and tear. So we have, you know, the corner is gone up here, and it is showing a little bit of wear on the sides, but it has the most wonderful cover art. So we have the front cover that has these beautiful oil lamps on either side of this window, and all of this is raised. It's all embossed, which is gorgeous. And I love vintage oil lamps. When we used to go to my parents' cabin, we always used to have the oil lamps lit, or anytime we lost the power, we would light the oil lamps. So I just love this cover. But what makes it even better is that this is a step back cover. So if we open the cover, of course, we have the die cut here, and then it reveals this beautiful picture of 4 boys on their bikes, you know, and it's sort of looks like dusk, I guess, with the trees in the background, and it says, "School's out, now it's time to learn fear." So this sounds like a summer horror, so I'm going to try to get to this summer. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to squeak it in, but it sounds absolutely fantastic. So I'll just read you a little bit from the back here. It's the summer of 1960. The 6th grade boys of Elm Haven, Illinois, are forging the powerful, magical bonds that a lifetime of growth and loss will never erase. Amid the sun-drenched cornfields and the sly flirtations of the town's young girls, that loyalty will be pitilessly tested. From the silent depths of the old central school, a hulking fortress tinged with the mahogany scent of coffins, an invisible evil drifts outward, plunging Mike, Dwayne, Dale, Harlan, and Kevin into a war without boundaries or mercy, where an eternal enemy owns the night. So 1960s, it's a coming-of-age summer horror, so I think this sounds absolutely fabulous. And of course, you can't beat these step-back covers, but they, just don't make these anymore. So this is an absolutely beautiful book that I am super happy to have as part of the collection. And then I also went to see my book dealer a couple of times. I have a guy here in the community that I live in, and he has an amazing collection of vintage horror novels that he is willing to part with, which is just absolutely outstanding. And this one was actually gifted. So we have a copy of The Stand by Stephen King. And I love this artwork on the front. It's just quintessential horror, and this one is I believe it's a first printing. Yes, it's a first signet printing from May 1991, and it's getting so hard to find these. So this one is, not in absolutely fantastic condition, but honestly, I'm just glad to have any first printings of these vintage horror books. So really, really excited to have this one for the collection. And I was so honored that he gifted this one to me. So the last 2 books are ones that are going to be just such treasured parts of my collection. So I think I've mentioned on the channel before that I love anything to do with Amityville, anything to do with the haunting, anything to do with the murders, the books, the movie adaptations, documentaries. I've probably seen them all. So it is kind of like a little pet project of mine. I love learning about Amityville. And of course, think what you may, some people are believers and some people are convinced it's all a hoax. I have my own thoughts on it. Maybe I'll do a video on it one of these days. But I was so happy to get a copy of this book. So this is Amityville 2: The Possession by Hans Holzer. And Hans Holzer is one of my favorite parapsychologists. He was a real leader in the field, and I just love listening to him talk about, things scientifically. Like I said, whether you believe them or not, he was one of the pioneers that came up with the ghost hunter, really. And he died, I believe, late 90s or early 2000s. But I've seen several documentaries with him in it, and I want to start collecting some of his books. So an Amityville book written by Hans Holzer is just something that I am so thrilled to have as part of the collection. So this one is a first printing, again from 1982. So it just makes it a little bit more special because it is from my birth year. And I honestly sometimes don't even want to touch this book because it is in such fabulous condition. There's absolutely no cracks in the spine. I don't think it was ever even read. There's one tiny little bend in the corner up here, but it's been flattened out. So I'm just gonna zoom in again here and show you the beauty of this book. So here we go. This is Murder in Amityville by Hans Holzer. Also known as Amityville 2: The Possession. And this book, and it's so funny because I know Amityville so well, that I often forget that people don't realize that there's a bigger story than that just of the haunting. And it's the story, of course, of the DeFeo murders that happened just a month before the Lutzes moved in, and that is a real life horror. So if you don't know, Ronnie DeFeo Jr. came home and shot and killed 6 members of his family, and there's a little bit of a supernatural sort of twist to the murders themselves. But just in looking at this book, it's just gorgeous. So there's no cracks on the spine here. There's very, very little wear and tear that's shown. And then if we open it up to the middle, we do have some art here from the movie. And this is just so amazing. I am so happy to have this book for the collection, and you know, it's just the quintessential thing that I would be looking for. It's written, like I said, by Hans Holzer. It came out in 1982, which is my birth year, and it has to do with one of my favorite topics. So you can't get any better than that. And so there you go. There's the artwork on the inside of the book. And like I said, I'm going to have to try to find a reader's copy of this or try to download it on my Kindle or something, because I don't want to damage this book any further than it already is by actually reading it. So really, really excited to have this one as part of the collection. And it is for sure going to be one of my prized possessions. So the last book that I wanted to share with you is Friday the 13th, Part 3, 3D. So this is an ultra rare book. So this is a first edition, again from 1982, and this book is in just almost immaculate condition. Of course, it has the tiniest little bit of wear on the covers, just because it's so old. I mean, the book is almost 40 years old, and I don't think it's ever been read. The spine is not cracked. You know, you can hardly even open this book, and I was so thrilled to have this. So like I said, this is a super scarce book to be able to find. It was printed by Leisure, and it's just so, so beautiful. So again, I will zoom in so you guys can see the interior of this book. So here we go. This is the ultra rare Friday the 13th, Part 3, 3D by Michael Avallone. And like I said, this book is in fabulous condition. You have just a little bit of wear showing on the edges of the front cover, but other than that, there is absolutely no damage to this book. The spine hasn't been creased, and it has the most beautiful artwork. So when you open this book, of course, again, just like the Amityville book, it does have 16 pages worth of movie stills, which just adds to the whole beauty of this book. And super, super happy to have this. Like I said, I got it for a really, really good price, you know, compared to what these are going for on eBay these days. And of course, when you get stuff on eBay, you're not really quite sure how it's going to arrive. So the fact that this is in the best condition probably that it could be, I'm super, super happy to have this. And like I said, these books that are printed by Leisure are getting more and more scarce. So again, you know, this one's really, really special because it was printed also in 1982, which is my birth year. And I'm going to be trying to look for some more books that were printed in that year, some more horror books, so I can have a whole collection of birthday books, if you will, in my horror collection. But as for this one, it's, like I said, it's getting really, really scarce to find these books, and super excited to have this one. and I will. So this was an absolutely amazing find. I priced these out on eBay, and it's really starting to get up there with what people are wanting for this book, and I got this for a very reasonable price. I wasn't sure if he was going to let it go, but I'm just so thrilled to have this for the collection. And of course it's going to be kept wrapped because I don't want any damage to come to it, and I'm gonna try to look for the rest of the novelizations in the Friday the 13th series as well. So there you guys go, that is my June book haul. I have hauled quite a few books since the last time that we did one of these videos, and I'm super happy with all of my finds. It's really great to get new books, but I'm just all about the used and the vintage. They're just so beautiful. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to give me a thumbs up, and leave me a question or a comment down below because you know I love chatting with you guys. But until next time, stay spooky. Bye.